So basically, I'm going to present about our survey. We try to understand what the simulation practitioners really need from cloud computing, or from the cloud simulations. So I think I copy Barry Nelson's approach when he presented a seminar at Lancaster. So in case there's a fire, at least you can get the idea what I'm going to present. So put some of the highlights of my presentation first. So basically what you will see is that our objective is to study the needs and perception from practitioners on cloud-based simulations. So that is the objective of our pilot study here. So the next one is that to do this, we survey 86 practitioners, academic. When I mention practitioners, I mean that includes academic and industry, both of them. And the findings, basically, if I can just take two main findings, is that they have good exposure to cloud applications and mobile gadgets. And the second one is they kind of come up with the what they expect from cloud-based simulations. Okay, so that is will be those are the highlights of my talk today. Okay, so this is the outline. Basically, I will talk about what cloud-based simulation is, followed by what the survey design, findings, and conclusions. Pretty straightforward. So, just to make sure we are on the same on a common ground, there are too many definitions of cloud computing. So I just pick one from. There seems to be de facto definition. So, but just pick one. It's called from NIST. It's a model for enabling ubiquitous. So I highlighted a few keywords there because it's really worthy definitions. So ubiquitous, on-demand, shared pool of resources, and configurable. So we can configure that, and we can also provision them very rapidly with minimal management effort. So that is the idea of cloud computing. Okay. So basically, if we can summarize what cloud computing is, it has a few characteristics. The first one is that it should be on-demand self-service. So this is on-demand. Resources available whenever we need it, and it's self-service. We don't. So the involvement of the vendor will be as minimal as possible. And broad network access, I think, using multiple platforms like mobile devices, laptop, desktop, and so on and so forth. So that's why in the questionnaire we are also interested about mobile gadgets. So it's try to understand how practitioners may use the cloud-based simulations. Resource pooling, so the resources are pooled somewhere. And rapid elasticity, basically, okay, if the demand is up, we need more resources. So that can be deployed automatically in the background. So that's the idea. And finally, there is a measured service, because at the end of the day, it will not be sustainable if there is no, if someone has to pay for it. So what kind of measured services that can be introduced in cloud computing? So I think yesterday I talked to Shinran about the possibility of pay-as-you-use model of one of your brewery model. I think if you haven't seen the brewery model, I think you can probably go to the Secure Solutions booth, and it's one of the idea about if you're running a small business like brewery and then you want to use simulations, probably you can't afford buying massive expensive simulation software. So that's the idea. Okay, so why don't we use the cloud-based simulations? Run it once and then you pay for it. So that's the idea. Okay. So the next one is the service models. So how can we deploy such cloud-based applications? Well, we can do it as a software as a service. So you run the software over the using a web browser or something similar, and then they basically run the software, maybe using pay-as-you-go. Another alternative is platform as a service. Basically, okay, what if I want to control the application more? So I can write the applications myself, modify it, and then run it. So this is a bit of a step from the software as a service, because this one is just given, I just run it. The software has been developed for me, and just run it. This one, I want to develop it myself. or at least I need to reconfigure it myself. The next one goes even further, so it's infrastructure as a service, similar to past, but now I want to control the environment as well, like operating system, database, and so on and so forth. Yeah. Now, if I want to relate this from cloud computing into cloud-based simulations, what would we expect from cloud-based simulations? One that I could foresee, and I think it's demonstrated very well for using the brewery simulations, is that simulation as a service. So someone has developed a model for the user, and then the user can run it, maybe for a fee, or for free at the moment. All right. Some people, they may want to be a bit more than that, so we call it, say, modeling as a service. So this will allow people to build the simulation model or configure the simulation model over the cloud infrastructure. So it's not just running it, but they want to do something about the model, modify it, or even build it from scratch, probably. So let's call this modeling as a service. And the next one, probably we can simulation platform as a service, just to adopt the name platform as a service from the previous slides. In this case, we expect the consumer can reconfigure the tool itself. So it's not only building the simulation model, but the tool to build the simulation model can be reconfigured. So for example, I like, say, Barry Nelson's optimization algorithm. I want to use that algorithm and then plug it into my simulation tool. Or if I like, I don't know, Pierre Lecuyer, a random number generator, just put in one and then plug it into my model. So that's the idea. So if I can reconfigure my simulation development tool, then I will get what I call a simulation platform as a service. Again, it requires certain interoperability, which you've been working on, right? So all the standards. So we need the components to be interoperable. The next one is probably go a bit further for simulation infrastructure as a service. So in this case, we want to have a more control. So say, for example, I want to set that my model should read a data from certain data server that I can trust, because I don't want to put my data on a server in a country that, say, I don't know, has a less strict requirements on privacy, for example. So that is a big issue for some people, if not most. So if I can control that, and I can control the execution platform as well, or I think we just discussed about the middleware, about the distributed simulation. If we run multiple simulations at the same time, can I choose the middleware instead of using, I don't know, Particle or use something else? Yeah. So basically, I want to have a bit more control about what is happening, how I want to run my model. So that is what I call simulation infrastructure as a service. Okay. So the next one is, okay. So now the attempt to use web technology in the past actually has been done quite significantly, what we call web-based simulations. So we really want to learn from what happened to web-based simulation, because you probably can disagree with me, but I find that web-based simulation was not really that successful in gaining commercial adoptions. So try to understand what happened. So one of the reasons that I quite like, it was suggested. I think Paul suggested this one, is that the web-based simulations, they thought that my web-based simulation was not successful because it was simply implement the desktop versions into a web-based versions, and so the web-based simulation did not really exploit the new features that web application could offer. Yeah. So I thought that could be the same for cloud-based simulations. So we can't really, probably we must not simply implement the existing desktop simulations into cloud-based simulations. We need to exploit the specific features of cloud computing that probably we can do something differently now that probably was not possible using desktop computing. desktop simulations. So try to take full advantage of cloud features. So we need to think probably outside the desktop simulation box. Okay. So and the next thing that I think probably one of the reasons that cloud-based simulation can be a failure, it should not be seen as simply a technological tool. We need to see it as a socio-technological tool, socio-technical tool, because we also need to take into account that there are users there. We need to know what they really need from cloud-based simulations. So that's the motivation of our pilot study here. So we did a survey, and then we got responses, quite a significant number of responses, and then we did just a bit of information. We collected the data early last year. We distributed in a number of LinkedIn groups, mailing lists, and I think we approached Limeck and Simulate as well to distribute the survey, the questionnaire to their customers. Okay, so basically, who the respondents were. I hope you can see. So most of them, roughly about 33 respondents out of 50 something, they come from university and research institutes, followed by consulting, healthcare, manufacturing. So I think it's a pretty good distributions of sectors in the industry. So they are quite well represented in the survey. Most of them, if not all of them, most actually, except 2 of them, most likely they are academics. They usually work in groups. Right? So, and I think the most common size is about between 3 to 6 people in a group. So maybe if you can, I don't know how many people usually in your group, for example.
In the group doing a model, or in the team?
In the whole project team. Yeah.
But in a project team, normally it's one person in that project team. Okay. But obviously there's lots of project teams going on in parallel.
Right.
But they don't tend to work in a group, so surprised by that.
Yeah. Right. So the next one is the frequency of model development. So we can tell that most of our respondents, they build simulation model pretty regularly, at least monthly or at least 6 months. Some of them do it even weekly. So basically the point is that they really know, they've been using simulations almost very regularly.
Sorry, Stephan, can
Yeah.
I just ask you a question?
Yeah.
Are you saying that people in a team of more than 50 building a simulation model?
I haven't really, I think I can roughly guess. This is from one of the big organizations.
I think it might be down to misinterpreting the question.
Yeah, could be. Yeah.
Is it the size of the organisation or the size of the people
Yeah.
in a given project?
That's right. Yeah. It's probably the size of the department he's mentioned.
Yeah.
Or it might be a team of 50, you don't know.
That's quite a lot of it, isn't it?
Well, it probably isn't much of a model, actually.
Well, yeah.
Right. And then one of the things that we are interested is because one of the things that cloud-based simulation can be quite useful is for communications. So we are quite interested in how do they approach, how do they communicate with members within their team and with clients. So it's not quite surprising, honestly. So within the team, most of the time face-to-face, followed by email. It's pretty straightforward. And the difference between communication within the team and the media, with the client, is that email, because clients usually is outside the organizations, so email is more frequent than face-to-face. But one thing that we notice is that people who are using teleconference, online messaging, and video conferencing, often, probably not many, but it's quite significant, because these are in percentage. So it seems that people have been working remotely, so it means it can mean that some of the team members may need to travel somewhere, and then they still need to communicate, or maybe they are based in different locations. So they work together as a team. And we can also see that from the communication with client as well. Okay, so that is the communications. And then we are quite interested in the tools and gadget usage because we want to know whether our respondents are familiar with this one. So that is a kind of positive indicator whether they can be adopters of cloud-based simulations. So whether it will be easy for them to adopt cloud-based applications or cloud-based simulation in this case. So we basically ask them a number of tools or gadgets, and then we ask them whether they have used it for a simulation project, or they use it for at work, but not for simulation project. They use it socially, or they never use it. So we can see that most people have already used remote desktop and cloud storage for a simulation project. So that also gives an indications that many people, they probably travel quite a lot, maybe visiting clients, or maybe they work in separate locations. And then because remote desktop, if you don't know what remote desktop is, it means that I can actually show what is on my desktop to other client. Oh, sorry, I can control the desktop from the other client, from the other party, and then show them how to do things from my computer. So then that can be quite useful if you work with someone on a different geographic locations. And then cloud storage, I think everybody probably have used it. Dropbox, for example. So it's quite handy. So for example, if I fail to copy my file here, or I lose my USB stick, I still have one in Dropbox, so I can always download it, provided we have internet connection here. Right. So, and the next thing is that he also used smartphone, for example. But again, this one, I think for the next version, I will need to ask more specifically, smartphone not as a phone, but as a mobile applications. So I think I can. So I completely missed that. Because when I check this one, some people might interpret it as making a phone call, but we are not interested in that. In this case, we are more interested in mobile applications. And then LinkedIn, they use collaborative writing as well. And this one is using tablets, writing wikis. Because I know that in some companies, they quite often, especially when they need to write manual or user guide and involves a number of teams, they do wiki as a start. So they write a wiki for the team. So it seems that some of them have already done it using this. So it's quite an interesting finding. So we didn't know about that before. I know this happens quite often in the simulation, in the software development team, because they do this quite often. But apparently it is done among the simulation team as well. Okay, this is the last part of the survey. So we asked the users, okay, suppose you have a stable and fast internet connections. So we need them to assume this. And what would you expect? How do you rate the following features? So I think it's not surprising that most of them will rate fast response time to be what they really as their first priority. So you can see here, essential. The blue one is essential. The red one is good to have. So we are looking at the high blue and high red here. So the next one is basically others to comment on the model, others to run the model. So we can see, because they are interested in other people to comment or run the model. So we can see the requirement there for another communication, another feedback from either team member or clients. And then the ability to share model, store or retrieve models, I think come up quite significantly as well. The one thing that is not very significant is the ability to edit models or others to edit model. So I think we need to get more data from this one by interviewing people. But my guess is because not all of the respondents are probably model developer. Because we asked roles as well. I think you can see it from the paper. Some of them have a different role, like project manager and so on and so forth, simulation analyst. So they don't really edit the model, and they don't probably, so their mindset's probably more on the, I prefer to edit the model using desktop computer, and then store it on a cloud computing computer somewhere, and then run the model or let other comment on the model on using cloud infrastructure, but don't touch it. So basically that is the key findings, and that is the summary. So basically from this survey, I think we kind of have a better understanding of the perspective from the simulation modelers, practitioners about their modeling work, their exposure to cloud-enabled applications, mobile gadget, and the application of the functionalities that might be offered by cloud-based simulation tools. And thank you for your time.
Do we have any questions for Stephen? There must be some questions.
Yeah, tell it.
I was interested in, who the people actually were and what they were currently doing with it. Were there people who were, was there a particular kind of person or software that were using it a lot more than others?
I cannot really tell directly, but because the way I distributed the questionnaire, most of them I suspect are discrete event simulation modelers, because the LinkedIn group that I used was, I know from the member names that most of them are discrete event simulation modelers. And